have talked at length about the need to disrupt the system. Obviously, that is the premise of why Dr. Cornel West is running for president right now. We see very often that any movement on the left ends up getting derailed for one reason or another. We'll obviously address what we have learned earlier today, but I think it's very important to focus on the core message of getting outside the two-party system and why the only way that you can create leverage is through the labor movement in conjunction with an outside the two-party system movement. For all the things that Marianne and RFK are doing running in the Democratic primary, they know that it has a safeguard of superdelegates, among other things, to stop it dead in its tracks. But even the concept of Dr. West right now polling consistently at 5% in the Green Party literally has the establishment losing their mind over a year out from the election, and he doesn't even really have a campaign going as of yet. And so it really says a lot.
Given today's news, it's not promising.
Sure. Well, may I?
Sorry.
Yes, we're all very upset about what we heard earlier today, as we should be. But you obviously had a very productive conversation with Dr. West following his conversation with our frenemy, and we'll just leave it at that. But I want people to obviously hear the highlights from this interview, and we will break it down. So here we go.
With all this hand-wringing and meltdowns, you got James Carville on TV saying he's wet in his bed, David Axelrod melting down. Has anyone from the Biden administration, the Democratic Party elite, reached out to you to see, you know, what can we do for you? What kind of policy concessions can we make? Not in 2 years, now. What can we do to further work on poverty or the Black community or the issues that you have championed? It seems if they're so worried, the first thing I would do is try to talk to someone you see as such a threat.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's one of the things we talked about on the Breakfast Club a few weeks ago, right? If they were really concerned about the conditions and issues that I'm talking about, they would speak to those issues and conditions and still have time to do it. Executive order and a whole host of other things. But the problem is that you don't have Socratic energy and democratic sensibility and Democratic Party. So its capacity for self-criticism is an analogous to my capacity to be tackle on National Football League team tomorrow. It just doesn't exist, it seems. It's so frozen, ossified, petrified into its narrow way of looking at the world, and those who do not accept that are demonized, marginalized, character assassination, and so forth, you see. Now, I'm more concerned about a critique of the system than I am being preoccupied with their attacks on me. You know what I mean? Because their attacks on me are minimal compared to what the masses of people have to live with every day. 63% of the population living paycheck to paycheck, unbelievable wealth inequality that we know. I mean, a lobby-free Congress is such an oxymoron at the present moment, given how deeply saturated the lobbyists are in the shaping of public policy. Same would be true with big pharmaceutical companies vis-a-vis policies in regard to public health and so on. But there are two things. One, there's a bully pulpit. As I said before, the social movement would have to be strong enough to keep the pressure on me as well as Congress to give me some room to maneuver, even as I'm a part of that social movement. And the second one would be, I would be robust in terms of the use of executive order, given the deep entrenched interests which are at work in Congress. And they could charge me with, unconstitutional. I'm not going to go beyond the Constitution in any ugly way, but even the Constitution itself oftentimes has been shaped by corporate interests. And I say, no, if I think the people's interest is actually being crushed, I'm going to stand up for that, and let's take it to court. I'm not going to be overthrowing all of the laws and all the courts, but let's take it to court. Let us reveal how the criminal justice system and the court system itself has been a rationalization of the rule of corporate power vis-a-vis working and poor people.
I love him. I do. Dr. West, if only you knew how much I loved you, you'd be more motivated to come on our
Jordan
show.
just sent him an email saying that
And
Jen would really like
I
to
do,
talk to
and
him.
I need to compensate for the when I met him the first time, which he doesn't remember, but I was an idiot. But then I think of he goes on people's shows that just are not worthy of him, and I understand it makes sense for numbers. I get it, but it's like, you know, he really needs to talk to people that really respect him. That's what I think, because he is on the mission. Everything he says, like, I totally get why he's doing what he's doing and the way he's doing it. And I feel like on some microcosm, that's what I did. And so I totally get what he's doing and what he's about. And he's the man.
Yeah, I think he's running. I mean, I can't speak for him, but I think he's running to create a movement that could go past this election cycle. Because there's been, you know, a lot of candidates that kind of created a movement like Bernie, but then left that movement kind of on the lawn, you know, and didn't just let it die on the vine. And I think what he's trying to do, I mean, I don't think he's naive. I don't think he thinks there's a strong chance of him becoming president. Crazier things have happened. But I think he's trying to significantly move us forward, make progress in terms of building a third party, get people who are right now out of the picture, not non-voters, which is the biggest voting bloc there in America, and get them to participate again, and then take that structure and make it go forward for years to come. And I think what he's doing is very important. I also think that I was encouraged that he said I would be very robust in terms of using executive action. That's actually one of the mistakes I think Marianne Williamson made when she entered. I agree with a lot of her policies. You know, she talks a lot about FDR and a new Bill of Rights. I agree with that. But I think practically when you're running in a primary that's not really a primary, you need to kind of have 5 bullet points that people could get. And I think she should have came day one. These are the executive actions that I would take that President Biden has refused to. I think Cornel should also do that. He's saying he will do it.
He has said some. I mean, he's already said like people he would pardon. He has said like that, you know, things that he would. I mean, he has said some. I think he.
But I'm talking about like declare a climate emergency.
Like, yeah.
Enact, you know, this clause to expand Medicare, which would be Medicare for all. And yada yada, you know. So I would lead forward with that. But I think what he's doing is great. I'm not telling people who to support, but at this point, listen, we can't be naive. This whole prism, this whole dynamic of we're with you on a third party, but this election is too dangerous. This Republican is too dangerous. Not this time. Right. I mean, that's never going to change. If it's not this time, it will be next time. If it's, God forbid, Marjorie Taylor Greene or the lunatic South Dakota governor or name your extremist Republican. I don't really think we're going back to like the Bob Dole era of Republicanism or even the Mitt Romney era. We're going to have this Trumpist in a teapot kind of, you know, for lack of a better word, nationalist, extremist Republican Party. And there's going to be really dangerous candidates for years to come. So the answer can't be grin and bear it and just vote for, you know, the slowly being poisoned rather than being shot in the face. You just can't operate that way. And this is coming from somebody who voted for Biden in 2020 because I was seeing out on the road. I was covering Trump rallies and it was just a lot darker than 2016, which I also covered. It seemed like I was at these rallies that like if I was living in the 1930s, it had tinges of it. You know, it was very authoritarian. I saw like white militiamen all over the place. Trump, I don't think he was really joking about serving more than 2 terms. So this isn't like a minimization that Trump is dangerous, but we've had 1 term of Biden and we've had a lot of dangerous things from Biden. Assange, what's going on in Cop City right now, he's not doing anything to stop it. He's backdoor trying to privatize Medicare. I mean, I could go on. There's a lot of terrible things. So
breaking the railroad strike.
The railroad strike, the Willow Project, the Mountain Valley Pipeline, Ukraine. I mean,
and this is where people who will remain unnamed coming out saying he's exceeded my expectations. He's been better on late. He has done the worst thing to labor since Reagan broke the air traffic controller strike. The worst thing. And this is looking at all of the things that Trump did, Bush did, Clinton did, Obama did, George H.W. Bush did. It was really freaking bad. And what ultimately comes as a result of breaking the railroad strike, and why what UAW doing right now is so earth-shatteringly significant. Because you would think that doing something like that would set this movement back so far that people would be so afraid to stand out in the streets. You've got WGA and you have SAG-AFTRA working in conjunction at the strike. And shout out to friend of both shows, Frances Fisher, who is a badass, if there ever was one,
really
who is just out there every freaking day getting everybody involved.
She's feisty.
Yeah, very feisty.
Was also out at Standing Rock, we should say.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, she's the real deal, and that's where it is inspiring to people. But you don't get any of that inspiration from Joe. And at a time where economic extremism of the worst kind, the anxiety that people are living with every day, not being able to pay their bills.
Bidenomics is going to fix that.
Bidenomics will fix that in about 50 years, but you've got to just be patient, and you might get lucky.
I also think there's kind of the propaganda they created is now biting them in the ass. Because remember, in 2020, we were fed nonstop by the Democratic Party, their sycophants in the media, was this is the pragmatic choice. This is the guy who could get Republicans to the table. This is the guy that could get, all the different factions of the Democratic Party to the table. Well, he basically hasn't been able to do anything other than, bipartisan privatization. That was the infrastructure deal. And the IRA, which was really just crumbs. I mean, tax credits for clean energy would have been nice 15 years ago. That's nothing now. So I think he can't get anything done. Whatever the reason, age, or just doesn't want to ruffle the donors, he couldn't even go at Manchin or Sinema. So why would you want a weak president who's not willing to use the bully pulpit against extremist Republicans? I mean, Trump right now in the polls is doing better than he was in 2019 or 2020. Trump was down in most of the polls against Biden. Now he's up. And I think Wisconsin in particular, it could flip back to Trump. Biden won it by 20,000 votes. That's nothing. Wisconsin has been tilting a little more red. Biden only won Pennsylvania by 80,000 votes. That's not like a monumental margin. Michigan remains to be seen. Georgia, frankly, don't go blaming Cornel West when Biden loses Georgia, because right now the key to Biden losing Georgia might be Atlanta, because they're cutting down a fucking forest to put in a militarized police compound. You can say, well, that's not Biden doing it. Well, it's a Democratic mayor, a Democratic city council, and these two Democrats that you said we had to elect to give Democrats the Senate, right, Warnock and Ossoff, are silent as a mouse. I mean, they killed a protester. The cops killed Tortuguita. They're arresting nonviolent protesters who, for the crime of having flares or running from cops, I would, in many cases, run from them too. And they're charging them with domestic terrorism. You know who else got charged with domestic terrorism? Timothy McVeigh. And they're charging nonviolent protests. So this is fascist. There's a debate about what's fascist and what not. This is fascist. Biden could put a stop to it. He's not. So yeah, I think that long-winded montage of mine, I think what Cornel West is doing is good. It's now just a matter of what can he do beyond interviews. The interviews are good, but that's not a campaign.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.